The cleaning cart squeaked as Tom Bradley pushed it down the long corridor of Harmony Point. The space station never slept, but during the night shift, the crowds thinned out enough that he could work without bumping into important alien dignitaries every few steps. He preferred it this way. Less attention meant fewer problems. Tom had been mopping floors and emptying trash bins on this massive trading hub for 8 years now. At 52, his hair had gone mostly gray, and his shoulders carried the slight stoop of someone who had spent too much time looking down at his work. The aliens barely noticed him anymore, which suited him just fine. To them, he was just another human doing the jobs they considered beneath their notice. The station buzzed with activity even at this hour. Merchants from the Helix Collective argued over shipping contracts in their musical language. A group of towering Titan warriors discussed battle strategies near the central plaza. The air recyclers hummed constantly, working overtime to handle the mix of atmospheric requirements for dozens of different species. Tom had just finished cleaning the executive dining area when he heard raised voices coming from the private meeting rooms. He normally ignored such conversations, but something about the tone made him pause. Through the partially open door, he could see several alien figures gathered around a holographic display showing star charts. "The humans are weak," rumbled a deep voice in accented standard. "Their colonies fall with minimal resistance. They have no real military strategy beyond throwing bodies at problems." Tom recognized the speaker immediately. Commander Rask of HFY. The Valari Empire stood nearly 8 feet tall, his reptilian features marked by ritual scars that indicated his high rank. The Valari were known throughout the galaxy as master tacticians and ruthless conquerors. Their empire had swallowed dozens of smaller civilizations over the past century. "Their Earth government begs for scraps at every trade negotiation," added another Valari officer. "They offer raw materials and cheap labor because they have nothing else of value." "Primitive creatures," Rask continued, his forked tongue flicking out as he spoke. "Good for cleaning and basic construction, but useless for anything requiring intelligence or skill." Tom felt his jaw tighten, but he kept working. He had heard such comments countless times before. Most species in the galaxy viewed humans as newcomers who had barely figured out faster-than-light travel. They saw Earth as a backwater planet full of beings who were useful only for menial tasks. "Commander Rask," called out a voice from behind Tom, "perhaps you would care to demonstrate human inferiority for our entertainment." Tom turned to see a Helix trader approaching. The collective species looked almost human except for their blue-tinted skin and the small gill slits along their necks. This particular trader was grinning in a way that suggested trouble. Rask emerged from the meeting room, his yellow eyes scanning the corridor until they landed on Tom. A slow smile spread across his scaly features, revealing rows of sharp teeth. "Perfect," Rask said, striding over to where Tom stood with his mop. "You there, human, what is your name?" Tom straightened up slowly. Years of janitorial work had taught him that the best way to handle difficult situations was to remain calm and polite. "Tom Bradley, sir." "Bradley." Rask pronounced the name like it tasted bad. "Tell me, Bradley, do your kind have any skills beyond pushing cleaning equipment around?" A small crowd was gathering now. Word traveled fast on a space station, and nothing drew attention quite like a Valari commander picking on someone. Tom could see various aliens emerging from shops and offices, eager to watch whatever was about to unfold. "I do my job, sir," Tom replied evenly. "Nothing more, nothing less." "Nothing more," Rask repeated with amusement. "How typical." "Well, Bradley, I have a proposition for you. The Valari have a traditional strategy game called Nexus. It tests tactical thinking, resource management, and combat planning. Would you dare to challenge me to a match?" Tom felt a familiar tightness in his chest. The last thing he wanted was attention, especially the kind that came from publicly embarrassing a high-ranking alien military officer. But he could see the trap being laid. If he refused, it would be seen as cowardice, reinforcing every stereotype about human weakness. If he accepted and lost badly, it would accomplish the same thing. "I'm not sure that would be appropriate, sir," Tom said carefully. "You're clearly a military professional and I'm just a janitor." "Exactly," Rask's voice boomed through the corridor. A military professional against a janitor. If humans have any natural tactical ability, surely even their lowest worker could provide some small challenge to keep things interesting. The crowd was getting larger. Tom could see merchants, diplomats, and station workers from a dozen different species gathering to watch. Some were recording the encounter on their personal devices. Whatever happened here would spread throughout the station within hours. "Come now, Bradley," the Helix trader called out. "Surely you won't disappoint your audience. We so rarely get to see humans attempt anything requiring skill." Tom looked around at the faces surrounding him. Some showed amusement, others anticipation, and a few displayed the kind of cruel interest that came from watching someone about to be humiliated. He thought about walking away, but experience had taught him that would only make things worse in the long run. "If you insist, sir," Tom said finally. "Though I should warn you that I've never played this particular game before." "Of course you haven't," Rask laughed. "Nexus requires understanding of military principles that are far beyond human comprehension. But don't worry, Bradley. I'll try to make your defeat educational rather than simply embarrassing." The commander gestured toward a nearby gaming alcove, equipped with holographic projectors. The crowd followed eagerly, chattering in various languages about odds and betting pools. Tom walked slowly behind them, his mind already working through what little he knew about Valerie military doctrine. As they approached the gaming station, Tom caught sight of his reflection in a polished metal surface. For just a moment, he didn't see a tired janitor with graying hair and a worn uniform. Instead, he saw someone else entirely, someone he had tried very hard to forget. "Prepare yourself, human," Rask said as he activated the holographic display. "Class is about to begin." Tom set down his mop and took a deep breath. Around him, the crowd pressed closer, eager to witness what they expected would be a quick and decisive demonstration of human inadequacy. None of them could have guessed that they were about to see something that would change everything they thought they knew about the quiet species from Earth. The game was about to begin, and Tom Bradley was about to remember exactly who he used to be. The holographic display flickered to life, creating a three-dimensional battlefield that stretched across the gaming table. Tom found himself looking at a detailed tactical map showing various terrain features, resource nodes, and strategic positions. It looked remarkably similar to simulation systems he had used many years ago, though the technology here was far more advanced. "Nexus is simple in concept," Commander Rask explained loudly enough for the gathered crowd to hear. "Each player commands a force of 100 units. Victory comes through either complete destruction of enemy forces or capture of all strategic objectives. The simulation runs in real time, so decisive action is crucial." Tom nodded, studying the battlefield layout. Mountains dominated the northern section, while a river system cut through the center. Several urban areas were scattered across the map, along with what appeared to be manufacturing facilities and supply depots. Basic principles of warfare suggested that controlling the high ground and supply lines would be key advantages. "You may select your force composition," Rask continued. "Heavy assault units, light reconnaissance troops, air support, artillery, and engineering units are all available. Choose wisely, human. This will likely be your only chance to command anything more sophisticated than cleaning equipment." The crowd chuckled at this comment. Tom ignored them, focusing on the unit selection interface. The system was intuitive enough that he quickly grasped how to allocate his forces. Instead of following what seemed like the obvious choice of heavy assault units, he selected a balanced mix with emphasis on reconnaissance and engineering capabilities. Rask raised his scaled eyebrows at Tom's selections. "Interesting choices, Bradley. Reconnaissance and engineers rather than combat troops. Are you planning to build bridges while I destroy your forces?" "Something like that," Tom replied quietly, finalizing his deployment positions. The Valeri commander had chosen a more traditional approach, heavily weighted toward assault troops and artillery. His units appeared on the southern portion of the map in a classic attack formation, designed for rapid advancement and overwhelming firepower. It was exactly what Tom would have expected from a species known for direct military confrontation. "Begin," Rask announced, and the simulation started running. Immediately, the Valari forces began advancing northward in coordinated columns. Their movement was textbook perfect, with proper spacing and mutual support between units. Rask clearly knew his business when it came to conventional warfare tactics. Tom took a different approach entirely. Instead of meeting the advance head-on, he dispersed his forces widely across the map. His reconnaissance units moved quickly to secure observation positions in the mountains, while his engineering teams began fortifying key choke points and establishing hidden supply caches. "Running away already?" Rask taunted. Typical human cowardice. But Tom wasn't running away. He was buying time and gathering information. Through his widely dispersed scouts, he could track every movement of the Valari forces. Meanwhile, his engineering units were busy creating prepared positions and establishing multiple supply routes that would be difficult for conventional forces to interdict. The first contact came when Rask's advance guard encountered one of Tom's reconnaissance teams near a river crossing. The human unit was quickly destroyed, but not before transmitting detailed intelligence about Valari unit compositions and movement patterns. "First blood to the Valari Empire," Rask announced triumphantly, though I expected more resistance from even human forces. Tom said nothing, but his eyes were tracking multiple data streams from across the battlefield. The loss of one unit had provided him with exactly the information he needed about his opponent's capabilities and tactical preferences. Over the next several minutes, the pattern repeated. Small human units would make contact with advancing Valari forces, engage briefly, and then withdraw or be destroyed. To the watching aliens, it looked like a rout in progress. The betting pools were heavily favoring a quick Valari victory, but something strange was happening that only Tom could see from his command perspective. Each engagement was teaching him more about Rask's decision-making patterns. The Valari commander was aggressive but predictable, following classical military doctrine almost perfectly. His forces advanced along the most obvious routes, secured the most obvious objectives, and responded to threats in exactly the way military textbooks would suggest. Tom had been counting on exactly this kind of by-the-book thinking. When the Valari forces reached the central river system, they found all the bridges destroyed and the shallow crossing points heavily mined. Rask's engineering units began working to establish new crossings, but this took time and concentrated his forces in predictable locations. That's when Tom struck. His scattered forces suddenly converged on the river crossings from multiple directions simultaneously. But instead of attacking the main Valari force, they targeted the supply lines that stretched back across the southern portion of the map. While Rask's attention was focused on the river obstacle, Tom's units were systematically destroying the ammunition depots, fuel supplies, and reinforcement staging areas that the Valari commander had established during his rapid advance. "What?" Rask stared at the display in confusion. "How did human forces get behind my lines?" The answer was simple but devastating. While the Valari had been advancing along obvious routes, Tom's units had been using difficult terrain and unconventional movement patterns to position themselves throughout the battlefield. His engineering teams had prepared hidden supply caches and concealed routes that allowed rapid redeployment without detection. Within minutes, the Valari forces found themselves cut off from their supplies and facing attacks from directions they had never anticipated. Rask tried to respond with classic counter tactics, but every move he made seemed to be predicted and countered before he could complete it. The crowd watching the game had fallen silent. What had started as an expected demonstration of human inadequacy was turning into something completely different. Tom's forces were not just holding their own. They were systematically dismantling a supposedly superior military force. "Impossible," muttered one of the Helix traders. "The human is using tactics I've never seen before." Tom continued his assault on multiple fronts. His reconnaissance advantage allowed him to concentrate forces against isolated Valari units, while avoiding direct confrontation with the main body of enemy troops. When Rask tried to consolidate his forces, Tom would strike at a different location. When the Valari commander attempted to secure his supply lines, Tom would attack his forward positions. The Valari forces were trapped in a tactical nightmare where every strength became a weakness and every defensive move opened new vulnerabilities. Rask's superior firepower was useless when he couldn't locate his targets. His disciplined formations became liabilities when they were predictable. His adherence to proven military doctrine made him vulnerable to unconventional approaches. "This isn't possible," Rask growled, his scaled hands gripping the control interface tightly. No human should be capable of this level of tactical sophistication. But Tom was just getting started. As the simulation continued, he began implementing increasingly complex strategies that seemed to anticipate not just what the Volari forces would do, but what they would do in response to his responses. It was as if he could see several moves ahead in a chess game that Rask was still learning how to play. The end, when it came, was swift and total. Tom's forces completed their encirclement of the remaining Valkyrie units and systematically eliminated them with minimal losses. The final score displayed in holographic numbers that seemed to glow mockingly in the sudden silence. Volari Empire 12 units remaining. Human forces 78 units remaining. Complete and utter victory for the Janitor. The silence stretched across the gaming alcove like a physical weight. Commander Rask stared at the holographic display showing his devastating defeat, his reptilian features frozen in disbelief. Around them, the crowd of alien spectators stood equally stunned, trying to process what they had just witnessed. Tom Bradley quietly stepped back from the gaming interface, his weathered hands steady, despite the adrenaline still coursing through his system. For a few moments, he had forgotten about mopping floors and emptying trash bins. For a few moments, he had been someone else entirely. "This is impossible," Rask finally spoke, his voice barely above a whisper, then louder. "This is impossible. No human possesses such tactical abilities. The system must be malfunctioning or you cheated somehow." Murmurs rippled through the crowd as various aliens began discussing what they had seen in their native languages. Tom caught fragments of conversation translated by his universal communicator. "Unprecedented. Impossible. Must investigate further." "The game logs are available for inspection," Tom said calmly. "Standard protocol for all gaming. Systems on Harmony Point. You're welcome to review every move I made." A Helix trader stepped forward, his blue-tinted features showing curiosity rather than amusement now. "I monitored the data streams throughout the match. There were no irregularities, no external input, no system errors. The human won through superior tactical planning." "Superior tactical planning." Rask repeated the words like they made no sense. "Humans don't possess such capabilities. Our intelligence reports clearly indicate that their military is primitive and disorganized." "Perhaps your intelligence reports are incomplete," suggested a new voice from the edge of the crowd. Everyone turned to see Ambassador Thorne of the Zephyr Federation approaching. The Zephyr were known as master scientists and engineers, their elongated skulls housing brains capable of processing information at incredible speeds. If anyone could analyze what had just happened, it would be them. "Ambassador," Rask said with forced politeness, "I assure you this was merely a fluke. Human tactical ability is well documented as primitive." "Documented by whom?" Thorne asked, his large black eyes focusing on Tom with obvious interest. "The Volari Empire? The same military intelligence that just suffered complete defeat at the hands of a station janitor?" The insult hung in the air like a challenge. Rask's scarred features darkened with rage, but he was dealing with a diplomatic representative of a major galactic power. Starting a fight here would have serious political consequences. "I propose a solution," announced another voice. This time it was Captain Dex of the Titan Assembly, his massive frame pushing through the crowd. The Titans were warrior philosophers, respected throughout the galaxy for their combination of physical prowess and strategic thinking. "Let there be a larger test," Dex continued. "Not just one Volari commander, but representatives from multiple species. A true examination of this human's capabilities under more challenging conditions." The suggestion sparked immediate interest among the gathered aliens. Tom felt his stomach tighten as he realized the situation was spiraling far beyond anything he had intended. "I appreciate the interest," Tom said quickly, "but I need to get back to my duties. The night shift won't clean itself." "Duties?" Rask's voice had taken on a dangerous edge. You humiliate the Valari Empire and then wish to return to menial labor? I think not, human. The crowd was growing larger as word spread throughout the station. Tom could see merchants, diplomats, security personnel, and various other beings, gathering to witness whatever was unfolding. Some were already recording the encounter for transmission to their home worlds. Ambassador Thorne stepped closer to Tom, his voice lowering to a conversational level. Tell me, Bradley, where exactly did you learn such tactics? Your approach showed familiarity with advanced strategic principles that most species require decades of study to master. Tom remained silent, but something in his expression must have given Thorne a clue because the ambassador's eyes widened slightly. Fascinating, Thorne murmured. Captain Dex, I believe your suggestion has merit. We should indeed arrange a more comprehensive test. Agreed, Dex said. I propose we establish formal parameters. Multiple commanders from different species. Complex scenarios. Real strategic challenges. If this human truly possesses exceptional tactical ability, it should be properly evaluated. And if he loses? Rask demanded. Then humanity's status in galactic affairs remains unchanged, Thorne replied. But if he wins against multiple opponents using varied tactical approaches, perhaps it's time we reconsidered our assumptions about human potential. Tom could see where this was heading, and he didn't like it one bit. Gentlemen, I really must insist that this has gone far enough. I'm not a military officer or a professional strategist. I'm just someone who got lucky in a game. Lucky? Captain Dex laughed, a sound like rocks grinding together. Bradley, I have studied military tactics for over 2 centuries. What you demonstrated was not luck. It was masterful strategic thinking executed with precision and creativity. The conversation was attracting even more attention now. Tom noticed several aliens speaking urgently into communication devices, clearly transmitting news of the evening's events to contacts elsewhere in the galaxy. Very well, Rask said, his voice carrying the formal tone of official challenge. I propose the following. A series of strategic simulations involving commanders from the Valari Empire, the Zephyr Federation, the Titan Assembly, and the Helix Collective. Complex scenarios requiring advanced tactical thinking. If the human loses, his species will be banned from all neutral trading stations as unfit for civilized interaction. And if he wins? Thorne asked. Then the Valari Empire will grant humanity full diplomatic recognition and advocate for their inclusion in the Galactic Cooperation Council. The stakes had just become enormous. Tom felt the weight of an entire species' future settling on his shoulders. Around him, the alien representatives were nodding in agreement, clearly viewing this as an acceptable wager. I haven't agreed to any of this, Tom said firmly. But you will, Captain Dex stated with certainty, because you understand what refusal would mean. Cowardice would be seen as confirmation of human weakness. Your species would suffer diplomatically regardless of the official terms. Tom closed his eyes for a moment, feeling the familiar weight of command responsibility that he had tried so hard to leave behind. When he opened them again, something had changed in his expression. The tired janitor was gone, replaced by someone with steel in his gaze and authority in his bearing. Fine, he said quietly. But I'll need time to prepare, and I want the scenarios to be randomly generated to prevent any accusations of favoritism. Agreed, Thorne said immediately. Shall we say 3 days to prepare? That should give time for word to reach the appropriate authorities and for additional observers to arrive. As the crowd began to disperse, buzzing with excitement over the upcoming challenge, Tom stood alone in the gaming alcove. The holographic display had shut down, leaving only the reflection of an aging man who had just agreed to risk everything his species had worked for in galactic society. But deep down, in a part of himself he had buried for years, Colonel Thomas Bradley was already planning how to win. 3 days later, the main assembly hall of Harmony Point had been transformed into something resembling a military command center. Massive holographic displays dominated the central space, while tiered seating accommodated hundreds of alien observers who had traveled from across the galaxy to witness the unprecedented challenge. Tom Bradley stood at his command station, wearing the same maintenance uniform he had worn for 8 years. He had refused the formal military attire that station administrators had offered. preferring to face this test as exactly what he appeared to be, a simple human janitor who had stumbled into something far beyond his intended scope. Across from him stood four of the most respected military minds in known space. Commander Rask represented the Valari Empire's tradition of overwhelming force. Ambassador Thorn brought the Zephyr Federation's reputation for technological superiority and precise calculation. Captain Dex embodied the Titan Assembly's centuries of warrior wisdom. And Admiral Cray of the Helix Collective was known throughout the galaxy for innovative tactics and unpredictable strategies. The scenario has been randomly generated by the station's central computer, announced Director Walsh, the human administrator of Harmony Point. His voice carried barely concealed nervousness as he addressed the assembled crowd. The simulation encompasses multiple star systems involving fleet operations, planetary defense, resource management, and diplomatic considerations. Tom studied the massive display showing the opening strategic situation. The scenario was staggeringly complex, far beyond anything he had encountered even during his military career. 3 inhabited systems were connected by various trade routes and jump points, with each commander controlling initial forces at different locations. Victory would require not just tactical brilliance, but strategic thinking on a scale that challenged even his experience. Each commander begins with equivalent resources, Director Walsh continued. The simulation will run in accelerated time, with each minute representing approximately 1 standard day. The challenge will continue until either one commander achieves total victory or 6 hours of real time have elapsed. The alien commanders had spent the past 3 days studying human military history, trying to understand what they might face. Tom had spent the same time remembering things he had tried to forget, walking through the station's corridors as memories of battles fought long ago came flooding back. "Begin simulation," announced the computer system. Immediately, the 4 alien commanders began implementing their opening strategies. Rask deployed his forces in classic Valari fashion, establishing forward bases and preparing for aggressive expansion. Thorn took a more measured approach, focusing on technological advantages and defensive positions. Captain Dex began building a balanced force structure designed for flexible response to various threats. Admiral Cray started with rapid reconnaissance missions to gather intelligence on his opponents. Tom did something completely different. Instead of focusing on military assets, he immediately began analyzing the economic and diplomatic aspects of the simulation. The scenario included civilian populations, trade agreements, and political relationships between various factions. While his opponents were positioning fleets and fortifying systems, Tom was studying resource flows and population dynamics. "Interesting approach," muttered one of the observers, a military attaché from the Corvus Republic. "The human appears to be ignoring conventional military preparations." But Tom wasn't ignoring military considerations. He was approaching them from a completely different angle. His years of studying asymmetric warfare had taught him that superior forces could be defeated through unconventional means. The key was finding leverage points that conventional military thinking overlooked. His first move caught everyone by surprise. Instead of building warships or fortifying positions, Tom began establishing trade relationships with neutral factions in the simulation. Using careful diplomacy and economic incentives, he secured exclusive access to rare minerals that were essential for advanced weapons manufacturing. "What is he doing?" Rask demanded. "This is a military exercise, not a trade negotiation." "He's cutting off your supply lines before you even realize you need them," Captain Dex observed with grudging admiration. By the time the alien commanders recognized what Tom was doing, he had already sewn up most of the critical resources in the simulation. Their expansion plan suddenly faced serious bottlenecks as essential materials became unavailable or prohibitively expensive. But that was just the beginning. Tom's next phase involved something the aliens had never encountered: information warfare. Using his network of trade relationships, he began spreading carefully crafted intelligence about his opponent's activities. He convinced Admiral Cray that Rask was planning a preemptive strike. He led Thorn to believe that Dex was forming an alliance against the Zephyr Federation. He fed Captain Dex information, suggesting that Cray and Thorn were coordinating their efforts. Within an hour of simulation time, the four alien commanders were viewing each other as primary threats, rather than focusing on the human who was manipulating them all. The first major engagement occurred when Rask's forces encountered what appeared to be a Helix Collective scouting fleet in a disputed system. The battle was brief but decisive, with heavy losses on both sides. Both commanders assumed they were under attack and began mobilizing their full military assets for war against each other. Meanwhile, Tom was quietly building his own forces in systems that the others had dismissed as strategically unimportant. His earlier economic moves had given him access to advanced technologies and resources that allowed rapid military expansion once he chose to focus on it. He's using our own tactical assumptions against us, Thorn realized as he watched Tom's forces appear in unexpected locations. We've been planning to fight each other while he prepared to fight all of us. The revelation came too late. Tom had spent months during his military career studying the tactical doctrines of various alien species, preparing for potential conflicts with humanity's galactic neighbors. He knew their strengths, their weaknesses, and most importantly, their predictable responses to specific types of threats. When Captain Dex attempted to forge a temporary alliance with Admiral Cray to counter the human threat, Tom was already 3 moves ahead. He had positioned his forces to take advantage of the exact meeting location they would choose, and when their fleets rendezvoused, they found themselves surrounded by superior numbers in a carefully prepared ambush. "Impossible," breathed one of the observing aliens. "He's fighting a 4-dimensional chess game while the rest of us are playing checkers." The final phase of the challenge showcased the full scope of Tom's strategic thinking. Rather than simply destroying his opponent's forces, he systematically dismantled their ability to wage war. He captured their supply bases, turned their allies against them, and exploited their tactical doctrines to create situations where their strengths became weaknesses. Commander Rask's aggressive expansion left his forces overextended and vulnerable to rapid strikes against poorly defended rear areas. Ambassador Thorn's technological superiority meant nothing when his manufacturing facilities were captured before they could produce advanced equipment. Captain Dex's flexible force structure was neutralized by attacks that came from too many directions simultaneously. Admiral Cray's innovative tactics were countered by strategies he had never imagined possible. The simulation ended not with a climactic battle, but with the systematic collapse of 4 separate military campaigns that had been outmaneuvered before they could properly begin. Tom's forces controlled all 3 star systems, commanded the loyalty of most neutral factions, and had reduced his opponents to scattered remnants hiding in remote asteroid fields. "Total victory achieved by human commander," announced the computer system. Simulation time elapsed 4 days, 7 hours, 23 minutes. Real time elapsed 2 hours, 18 minutes. The assembly hall fell into absolute silence. Hundreds of alien observers sat stunned, trying to process what they had witnessed. The 4 military commanders stood at their stations, staring at displays that showed the complete destruction of everything they had thought they understood about warfare and strategy. Tom Bradley stepped back from his command interface and looked around at the silent crowd. For a moment he saw not alien faces but human ones, remembering another time when his tactical brilliance had achieved victory at a terrible cost. Then he picked up his maintenance cart from where he had left it beside his station. "If you'll excuse me," he said quietly, "I have floors to clean." As he walked toward the exit, the silence finally broke into a chaos of voices speaking in dozens of languages, all trying to understand how a human janitor had just redefined everything they thought they knew about warfare. News of the challenge results spread across the galaxy faster than anyone had anticipated. Within hours, every major news network was broadcasting footage of a human janitor systematically defeating 4 of the most respected military minds in known space. Diplomatic channels buzzed with frantic communications as governments tried to understand what this meant for their relationships with humanity. Tom Bradley returned to his small quarters in the station's maintenance section, hoping for some peace after the chaos of the past few days. Instead, he found Ambassador Thorn waiting for him, along with a woman in an Earth Defense Force uniform he hadn't seen in nearly a decade. "Hello, Tom," said General Patricia Hayes, his former commanding officer, and one of the few people who knew his real identity. Been keeping busy, I see. Tom set down his maintenance tools and looked at the two visitors. Pat, I was wondering when Earth would send someone. The whole planet's been watching the broadcasts, Hayes said. The president wants to offer you a position as Strategic Defense Coordinator, full reinstatement, promotion to general, command of whatever resources you need. Not interested, Tom replied immediately. I left that life behind for good reasons. Ambassador. Thorne stepped forward, his large eyes studying Tom intently. Bradley, you've just demonstrated capabilities that change everything we thought we understood about human potential. Your species can no longer be dismissed as primitive or strategically insignificant. That was the point, Tom said quietly. Sometimes you have to show strength to avoid having to use it. But the implications go far beyond avoiding conflict, Thorne continued. The Zephyr Federation formally requests establishment of military exchange programs with Earth. We want to learn from human strategic thinking, and we can offer technological advances in return. General Hayes pulled out a data pad showing messages from various government agencies. It's not just the Zephyr, Tom. 6 different alien governments have requested formal diplomatic meetings. 3 more have inquired about defense treaties. The Titan Assembly wants to establish a joint military academy. Even some of the smaller species are asking about trade agreements and mutual protection pacts. Tom walked to his small window overlooking one of the station's docking bays. Below, he could see ships from dozens of different worlds conducting the same business they always had. But now, with a subtle difference. Human merchants and diplomats were no longer being ignored or dismissed. Aliens who had barely acknowledged their existence before were actively seeking them out for conversations. What about the Valari? Tom asked. Commander Rask has been reassigned to a border patrol post, Thorne replied, with what might have been amusement. The Valari High Command is conducting a complete review of their military doctrine, particularly their intelligence assessments regarding human capabilities. And the rest of the Valari Empire? Officially, they're honoring their agreement. Full diplomatic recognition for humanity, advocacy for Galactic Cooperation Council membership. Unofficially, there's considerable debate within their government about whether humans represent a potential threat or a valuable ally. General Hayes pulled up another file on her data pad. Tom, I need you to understand the scope of what's happened. The intelligence community has been flooded with requests for information about human military capabilities. Everyone wants to know if you're unique or if Earth has been hiding a generation of tactical geniuses. What are you telling them? The truth, mostly. That humanity has a long history of warfare and strategic innovation. That our military academies produce competent officers trained in various tactical approaches. That our defensive capabilities are more sophisticated than most outsiders realize. But not the whole truth, Tom observed. Hayes smiled grimly. Not the whole truth. We're not mentioning that our most brilliant strategic mind has been mopping floors for 8 years because he couldn't handle the guilt of being too good at his job. The comment hit harder than Tom expected. He thought about the civilians caught in crossfires during the Centauri campaign, the refugee columns that had been targeted because of strategic decisions he had made. Victory had come at a price that still haunted his dreams. I didn't leave because I couldn't handle being good at my job, Tom said quietly. I left because I was too good at it. Every brilliant tactical move I made had consequences measured, in lives. Being right all the time doesn't make you a hero when people die because of your decisions. Ambassador Thorne tilted his elongated head thoughtfully. Yet your recent demonstration involved no actual casualties. You defeated 4 opponents through superior strategy without unnecessary destruction. Perhaps your methods have evolved. Was a simulation, Tom pointed out. Real war is messier, which is precisely why the galaxy needs strategists who understand that distinction, General Hayes said. Tom, I'm not asking you to return to active military service, but humanity needs advisors who can help navigate these new diplomatic waters. We're suddenly being taken seriously by species that have existed for millennia, and we need people who understand how they think. Before Tom could respond, his personal communicator chimed with an incoming message. The display showed it was From Director Walsh, marked as urgent priority. Bradley, report to the main conference room immediately. We have a situation developing that requires your expertise. Tom looked at his two visitors, then at the communicator. What kind of situation? The kind where 3 different alien fleets are converging on this station, and nobody's entirely sure whether they're coming to negotiate or start a war, Hayes replied grimly. The main conference room was in chaos when Tom arrived. Multiple view screens showed long-range sensor readings of approaching vessels, while various station personnel worked frantically at communication stations trying to coordinate with the incoming fleets. Director Walsh looked up as Tom entered. Bradley, thank God you're here. We've got Corvus Republic ships coming in from the Rimward jump point, a Nexari battle group approaching from the core systems, and something that looks like a Dominion expeditionary force dropping out of hyperspace in the outer system. Are they responding to communications? Tom asked, automatically falling into the kind of tactical assessment that had once been second nature. That's the problem. All 3 groups are transmitting diplomatic credentials and requesting immediate meetings with the human strategic advisor. They're not hostile, but they're not exactly following standard protocols either. Ambassador Thorne entered behind Tom, having followed him from the maintenance quarters. The situation is more complex than it appears, he said. My government has been monitoring communications across multiple sectors. Word of your victory has triggered what can only be described as a strategic realignment throughout known space. Meaning what exactly? Tom asked. Meaning that every major power is suddenly reassessing their position relative to humanity, Thorne explained. Some see Earth as a potential ally with previously unknown capabilities. Others view your species as the emerging threat that needs to be contained or co-opted. And a few are wondering if humanity has been concealing its true abilities all along. Director Walsh gestured to the tactical display. The Corvus Republic has been having border disputes with the Dominion for decades. The Nexari have territorial ambitions that conflict with both of them. Under normal circumstances, 3 fleets like this converging on a neutral station would mean we're about to become a battlefield. But these aren't normal circumstances, Tom realized. They're all here for the same reason. They want to secure some kind of arrangement with humanity before their rivals do. Precisely, Thorne confirmed. And since you've become the face of human strategic capability, they want to deal with you directly. General Hayes approached the group, having been monitoring communications with Earth. Tom, I just received word that the President is prepared to authorize you as an official diplomatic representative for these negotiations. Full ambassadorial powers, whatever resources you need. Tom looked around the room at the various displays showing approaching alien fleets, each representing civilizations that had existed for centuries or millennia. A week ago, he had been an anonymous janitor trying to forget his past. Now the IOS future of human-alien relations potentially rested on decisions he would make in the next few hours. What are their specific demands, he asked. Director Walsh consulted his datapad. The Corvus Republic wants a mutual defense agreement and technology-sharing protocols. The Nexari are offering exclusive mining rights to rare Earth deposits in exchange for strategic consultation services. The Dominion is being more vague, but their diplomatic messages mention addressing the changing balance of galactic power. Tom closed his eyes for a moment, his mind automatically analyzing the implications of each position. The Corvus Republic was looking for allies in their ongoing disputes. The Nexari wanted to buy human expertise to fuel their expansion plans. The Dominion was probably here to either recruit humanity as clients or neutralize them as a potential threat. They can't all get what they want, he said finally. Any agreement with one group will be seen as choosing sides by the others. And, if we refuse to deal with any of them, we'll be seen as hostile to all of them. So what do you recommend? Hayes asked. Tom opened his eyes and looked at the tactical display again. 3 fleets, 3 different agendas, 3 potential paths that could lead humanity into galactic prominence or galactic war, the same kind of strategic decision that had driven him away from military service in the first place. But this time, he realized, the stakes were different. This wasn't about winning battles or defeating enemies. This was about establishing humanity's place in a larger community, about ensuring his species had a voice in decisions that would affect their future for generations. We negotiate with all of them, Tom said. Separately, simultaneously, and transparently. We establish humanity as an honest broker rather than as anyone's exclusive ally. That's a dangerous game, Thorne warned. You'll be walking a tightrope between three major powers, any of whom could decide you're more trouble than you're worth. Tom smiled grimly, feeling the familiar weight of command responsibility settling on his shoulders once again. Ambassador, I spent most of my military career fighting impossible battles with insufficient resources. Walking political tightropes doesn't scare me nearly as much as it should. Over the next several hours, Tom found himself shuttling between three different negotiation sessions, each conducted in separate conference rooms with representatives from the approaching fleets. The Corvus Republic delegation was straightforward and military in their approach, offering clear terms for mutual defense agreements. The Nexari were sophisticated traders who viewed everything through the lens of economic advantage. The Dominion representatives were subtle and indirect, probing for information about human capabilities while revealing little about their own intentions. Tom's approach was consistent across all three meetings. Humanity was interested in peaceful cooperation with all species, willing to share knowledge and expertise in exchange for fair compensation, and committed to maintaining independence rather than exclusive alliances. He neither confirmed nor denied specific details about human military capabilities, allowing each delegation to draw their own conclusions about what Earth might offer as an ally or represent as a threat. The breakthrough came when Tom proposed something none of the alien delegations had expected: a joint conference involving all parties, with humanity serving as a neutral mediator for broader regional stability discussions. You're suggesting that we negotiate with our rivals while you observe? Asked Commander Voss of the Corvus Republic. I'm suggesting that stable relationships benefit everyone, Tom replied. Humanity has no territorial ambitions in your region of space. We're not competing for the same resources or strategic positions. That makes us ideal mediators for helping resolve conflicts that have been hampering trade and development for decades. The proposal was audacious and risky, but it offered something valuable to all three powers: a chance to resolve their ongoing disputes without appearing weak to their own populations, mediated by a species that had just demonstrated unexpected strategic sophistication. After extensive consultations with their respective governments, all three delegations agreed to the joint conference. The negotiations that followed were complex and sometimes heated, but Tom's reputation for tactical brilliance gave weight to his suggestions for compromise solutions. When the final agreements were signed 3 days later, humanity had achieved something remarkable. Earth was now recognized as an official mediator in regional disputes, with formal diplomatic relationships with three major galactic powers. Human merchants and diplomats would have access to previously restricted trade routes and markets. Most importantly, humanity's status as a primitive species was officially ended, replaced by recognition as a strategic partner worthy of respect and consideration. Tom stood in the observation deck of Harmony Point, watching the three alien fleets depart on peaceful terms for the first time in decades. Behind him, General Hayes approached with a final offer from Earth's government. The President wants to establish a new position, she said. Director of Interspecies Strategic Affairs. Your own department, hand-picked staff, direct report to the cabinet level. You'd be shaping humanity's role in galactic civilization for generations. Tom was quiet for a long moment, watching the stars beyond the departing ships. What about my cleaning duties here on the station? Hayes smiled. I think Director Walsh can find someone else to mop the floors. I'll consider it, Tom said finally. But I have conditions: no active military operations, no planning for aggressive campaigns. If I do this, it's about building bridges, not burning them. Agreed. You've already proven that sometimes the best way to win is to make sure nobody has to lose. As the observation deck emptied, Tom remained at the window, thinking about the strange path that had brought him from a maintenance closet to the center of galactic diplomacy. 8 years ago, he had tried to escape the consequences of being too good at warfare. Now he was being asked to use those same skills to prevent warfare entirely. Perhaps, he thought, this was what he had been preparing for all along. Not the perfect victory, but the perfect peace. Behind him, his abandoned mop and cleaning cart sat forgotten in the corner, no longer needed by someone who had found a different way to serve humanity's future among the stars.